We'll call the Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 Commission to order, and we'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag and followed by a prayer from Pastor David Dubovich from Park Place Christian Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's go to God in prayer. Wonderful, loving, and indeed gracious and always present God, you are with us always, and we are grateful that you have given each of us a good night's rest, that we can begin a new day to do the work that you call us to do. And for the work that the county commissioners are about to embark upon today, God, give them the wisdom, give them the grace, give them the understanding as they make decisions today on behalf of our community. For all the work that is done within our community of many, many individuals who live and reside in Reno County, God, we give you thanks for the means that we have to work and to play and to grow in this community and to make the community better each and every day. God, we give you thanks, and we most of all thank you for the many blessings you bestow upon us each day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Sure.
At this time, we'll have a COVID update with commission discussions on opting out of the governor's mask mandate. Karen, Carla?
Thank you. Just giving you an update this morning. We have total cases through the pandemic. We've had 7,720. We have total active cases of 86. That's the same with the community. We have a 14-day positive test rate of 7.0% and a 14-day new case count per 100,000 of 69. That's of February 28th. That is down from February 21st, which was at 9.1%, and 14-day new case count at that time was 98. We've had total deaths of 138 in our county, so that would be Reno County residents. Total hospitalizations during the pandemic have been 364 of Reno County residents and also 103 ICU admissions. So we're really, really pleased with the numbers and how it is trending down in our community. Vaccinations have been well received in Reno County. We've given over 5,100 first dose vaccines and close to 2,000 second dose vaccines to date. And that would be just those that are running through the Reno County pod system, and not just pods, but what I'm trying to say is when we bill at the county, those are the numbers I can count a lot easier. So Hutchinson Regional Medical Center, Prairie Star Hutchinson Clinic, the Medicine Shop, Walmart, and Dillon's all have vaccine now. So we're still continuing to push more of that vaccine out. We have worked with huge collaboratives, and it's been a whole Reno County community effort to get those pods worked through our system. And I could name them all. I've printed them to you, but I will probably leave someone out. But it has been an all-out effort by so many people in our community, and we would like to thank them for that. And then continue to thanks because they are continually working at those pods and also just vaccinating patients in our community. We did speak as a medical collaborative, and we continue to meet on a regular basis. It would be our recommendation to not opt out of the governor's mask mandate at this time. We feel that this is premature. Our numbers are coming down. We have gotten the high priority people as far as those 65 and older vaccinated. And also we have the first portion of teachers vaccinated, but they don't even have their second vaccines in. We just sent all kids back to school, which we would like to keep them in school. So it would be our preference to leave that in place, and then we'll just revisit that in another month as we get more vaccine out. In this next month, we should be we are moving into phase 2C, which is high contact critical workers on that vaccination plan. And so that could vaccinate a whole lot more people in the next month, which we could, see what other states are doing. Other states we know have completely opened up. It gives us a view of what's going on in those states, and then how that variant might change as well. So that would be our recommendation, to not opt out of the mask mandate at this time, and at least give us another month to push more vaccine out and see what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Carla, do you want to add anything?
No, any questions?
Okay. I just thought that this needed to be brought up because of other states who have opted out, and I had the luxury of being down in Texas from Friday evening through Monday morning, and to see what was happening. We visited grandsons and their parents down there, our son and his wife, and she's a teacher and in a big school system. And what I saw down there was everybody paying attention to the businesses, even though they'd opted out. The governor had opted out in Texas. They had paid attention to their businesses. The signs were still up. I didn't see any complaints. I didn't spend hours at Kroger's or CVS or anywhere. But everybody that was in there, including our grandson who works there part-time, they were all wearing masks inside the businesses. Several were wearing them outside, even though the mandate was gone. Excuse me. Even at the ball game, some wore, some didn't. But what I saw was in my brief time down there is I didn't see any rowdiness. I didn't see any complaints. Some still wore it into restaurants, some didn't. Once they got in there, it's just like school. Kids take their masks off to eat, and they're maybe 3 or 4 feet apart, and then they go back in their classroom. So some of this didn't all add up to me, and so that's why I want to bring this up. And I understand. I haven't checked it out for sure. I understand Hayes may be opting out. City of Hayes may be opting out tomorrow. I don't know that for a fact, but I've heard that from a worker in a home there. So, in my opinion, I think that the educational process that we have gone through to wear masks is and letting people know that businesses will require that. And I just wanted to bring it up for discussion, okay? And after being down to Texas especially. So that's my thought, is that I think people are a little more cognizant and got the fear of rights taken away maybe a little bit. But I just wanted to bring that up for consideration here and comments from the rest of the commissioners.
Well, Commissioner Hurst, I appreciate your personal views, but I think my view is that we're doing something as a community here and as an organization here. Our health department has just said that their collaborative was met and suggests that we go a while longer until we get more vaccination done. I'm so pleased that our cases are down, that our hospital's in better shape and so forth, but these people have all gone through a terrible time, and I don't want it to turn. So first, our health department says that we should stay for a while. Second, I think both of you got an email from our largest private employer in Reno County with over 1,200 employees saying that their people haven't been vaccinated yet. They're in this essential worker group, I believe, which will be taken care of here in the near future, and we will be getting the essential workers taken care of soon. Chamber made a survey, and there was more people that desired us to keep it. You received a letter from the medical community with 24 local doctors and medical administrators saying it's too early to opt out of this. You also received information from our 2 largest school districts that said that they would like our help in continuing to encourage masks. I don't think the mandate has been 100% successful, but the mandate has certainly helped us to be more successful than we would be if we didn't have the mandate. I thought it was interesting yesterday when we received emails on both sides of this, even one of our more conservative groups in town, when we received emails from them, that was a mixed message. That group didn't even agree on where we should be. And so I really think that we need to keep the mask mandate until more people are vaccinated. It certainly appears that we're going to have a lot more vaccination or vaccine available here in the next few weeks, and certainly a month from now, I might agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but with the input of all those people that I listed, I think they know more about what's going on than any one of us individual commissioners, and so I would hope that we continue the mask mandate for another month.
Do we have any? Do we have Dr. Polly, Dr. Degner? Is there anyone here?
No. Well, you've got a letter from Dr. Polly and Dr. Degner, signed by them.
Well, and Commissioner Sellers, I acknowledge and agree with you. I received all the same information. Most substantially is the letter from I think what we call the Health Collaborative, which is the health department, the hospital, and the clinic. And there's 11 physicians that are signing on to this, for RNs, multiple PhDs, and an MBA, as well as a lot of other professional staffers. And so, I mean, that was by far the most significant note that I got, probably the most weighted for me. Here's where I'm worried. If we're if our responsibility is to approve and keep these mandates in check, I don't feel like I'm fully up to date on these issues, and I've been asking for as much information as I can get, and it's been coming, and I know everybody's busy. I'm disappointed that there's no physician here today to answer my questions. I have a few. I mean, does the health department want to take a shot at it? I mean, I hate to put you guys on the spot. I know you're reliant heavily on physicians, but I've got a few questions that I think are very important to my own decision on this matter, if you're willing.
I can try to answer any questions that you have.
One of my concerns is we right now, this letter, the policy that the health department kind of signaled today is there's really no answer to when. We don't even have an objective criteria as to when. It just seems to be being pushed off further and further. And I understand the risks that are being presented in this letter and your comments today, but at the same time, there are a number of factors that are changing, from vaccine distribution to just reducing the risks associated with the population highest at risk for death, to treatment. I think treatments seem to be going well around here, and we're doing better at that. And so I'm worried that we're still looking at policy that we implemented in the beginning that was, people thought this was, in some ways, I mean, I hate to say worse than it is, but certainly bad. It's horrible. It's significant. But I think some of the policies probably were a little overreactive. And at what point do we acknowledge that and start to kind of move to reopening to a point where we look at the evidence and say this is working and this is not. And so I guess my first question is, when you look at the graphs, if you go from a county that has a significant policy to a county that doesn't in Kansas, if you go to a state that has significant policy to a state that doesn't, are we seeing a difference in mask use? Are we seeing an impact in the overall COVID deaths or COVID cases?
I think when you're looking at those types of things, and you have certainly asked these questions over and over, and I appreciate that. That means that you are trying to learn all the information that you have. But unfortunately, science isn't just black and white, and so some of the things that we're doing and have done may or may not prove to be the correct way to do things, or maybe that we will prove that we did everything correctly. This is a pandemic, and with medicine, you're looking down the road to find out what the statistics could have been, because there are so many variables. You've got age as a factor. You've got the diagnoses that people are predisposed of. We figured that out very quickly on during this pandemic, of being overweight, diabetes, hypertension, trying to protect those. But just even in education, I talked to somebody yesterday. They don't have any hypertension. They don't have any problems because they're on a high blood pressure medicine. And so that's what we're dealing with in the medical community, is the continuation of just trying to educate. And so just layering the things that we have done, what we are doing, are the same things that we do for other viruses and other things that are communicable illnesses. So what we're doing is not new. The difference is this was so widespread. And I don't think that most of us as Americans are used to having anything come into the United States. We feel like our healthcare system will just be able to handle everything because that's what we have done in the past. And those things are in other countries that don't have the type of medical care that we have. But unfortunately, I think it showed a weakness in our medical system that we can't handle everything. And we went back to all the things that have been tried and true, and wearing a mask and social distancing and washing your hands and quarantines. Those are things that I do for other illnesses. Tuberculosis is one of those things that you wear a mask for. But probably many of you in this room don't know anybody that's been treated recently for tuberculosis, but I do. And so when I go into those homes, I do wear a mask, and they are required to stay at home during that time. COVID has been so different because it is an extremely different virus. It hits people with absolutely no symptoms, and it takes others' lives. So learning and adjusting and moving with that is what we've all done over the last year now. And I don't have the information that you have. I can tell you that medicine is a science, and they are working on all of the information that you would like to have, but we probably will not have some of that data until a couple of years from now.
Okay. I mean, is it fair to say we're we're making educated guesses?
I wouldn't say they're educated guesses. I would say that there's a lot of education that goes into that. And so then you're looking at trends, you're looking at data, so a lot of science and math that goes into what we are trying to do.
Well, if we don't have the data yet, what do you classify it as then?
So we are looking at what has happened in the past and what we feel may happen in the future based on that.
Historical observations, or
Yes.
okay. Do we have evidence? Because I feel like we're kind of in the middle of the pack. I mean, there are states that have not had a mask mandate for some time. There are counties in Kansas that have taken mask mandates off the table in the middle of the kind of the upswing of the curve. We're on the downswing of a curve. I understand there's points of view that there'll be another one. Do we have evidence from any of the states or counties that have removed a mandate that significantly changes the trajectory of cases or deaths?
I would not have the data to specifically support that. However, we definitely feel like the masks are helping, and there are certainly lots of documentation that Dr. Pauly has presented on the use of masks and that they work.
Well, okay, so appreciate, Karen, you being here. I know it's a tough job, and it's really hard for me when I read a letter like this, with all of these very respected physicians and people that have worked way more hours than I think they ever expected, and have sacrificed their time, their families, and everything else to do this, to go against it. At the same time, I feel like I have a burden as a commissioner to, if we're going to reach kind of the top level of our authority as invoking a mandate, that's a police power function that we have under the Constitution, and to use that, we need strong evidence, and at some point, I think in this process, as we continue it further, our burden of proof to continue these things increases, and I'm getting less comfortable with a lack of, if we have a year's worth of data, we ought to have information that shows us that these things are working or they're not. And I feel like what the data is showing is it's really hard to prove that they are working. Maybe the counter argument would be that it's really hard to prove that they aren't working. But I think the obligation to us is much higher than one step down, which is you all saying, hey, this is highly recommended, us having your back, that this is highly recommended, pushing the narrative of, you have a responsibility to take care of your fellow man here and do what the physicians are saying you need to do. And that's where I'm seeing the difference here between, forcing somebody and having the burden of proof that it seems like we're having trouble developing, and one notch less, which is, hey, this is highly recommended, let's keep doing it until we're out of this. And so I know I asked for a middle ground to this, and I got a lot of feedback, and it's about 50-50. 50% of people were like, please exempt the county. 50% were, please continue it. But my number one issue is that I've got two issues. One is I still feel like I'm behind the curve on the information, and I don't have enough opportunity to communicate with the people that are working behind the scenes with you to answer the questions I need to make these decisions. So I feel like I'm behind the curve on the ability to make this decision, and I think we need to work better on that. I know it's really hard. You guys are very busy, and the doctors that you're working with have full-time jobs, and I don't know what we do, but I feel still like I'm a little behind the curve. But would it I don't know. I guess I know your position, and maybe it's unfair for me to ask you to compromise that position, but maybe we just need to talk through what might be fair for the different positions amongst the commission. One thought I had is if we taking all of this information, and I think there's a theory here that I haven't seen proven, but the theory here is if we do this, it will cause a surge in cases. That's the theory. Other states are doing this. What if we just waited till the end of the month and watched the state of Texas, gave everybody some more time to provide more information that might help this commission, but set a deadline, and then we have something to tell people rather than I'm just going to kick the can down the road and we'll look at it in another month. Is that a fair compromise?
I'd like to see it at the end of the month. I think I would. My question is we yet, and I agree with you, we yet don't have any definitive proof. We know that any time that we can control our vapor and our droplets coming out, whether you have a cold or anything like that can be transmitted, okay? That if you can contain that within a short period of distance, you're going to help. What is the magic number? It can't be 0. Is it 5? What is the magic number that triggers that? Nobody has said that yet. Nobody has volunteered a number. Nobody has volunteered the fact that in Reno County, if you do not wear a mask, that you're susceptible. Now, we know that's a fact, but we don't know any percentages because I have friends that have been to events that have contacted it. Indoor events, tight quarters, okay, not outside. We've already proven that outside there's very, very, very little chance of contracting it. We proved that last summer. And so as we get into spring, more are going to be outside. The weather's nicer. You get more air. What is the magic number? I think that's kind of what you were asking is do we go down to where it's 0, which is impossible, so we continue to wear masks forever? What is it? Is it 6% contracting? Is it 5? What is the magic number? We have to have something. I agree with Commissioner that we have to have some type of definitive answer. We can't go on just continuing this. It doesn't work in school. It doesn't work anywhere else.
Well, that's your opinion that it doesn't work in school, Commissioner. That's not necessarily the opinion of the people that run the schools and so forth. That's an opinion of yours. That's not a fact that it doesn't work in schools.
You know, that might be, but it might be. You're right. It is my opinion, but it's also been pretty well stated and recognized of the people that contact don't have the severity of problems at a certain age. That's proven.
That's a different statement than that masks don't work in schools.
But masks are taken off before school, after school, during lunch. I just want to have some type of a definitive answer. Where do we cut it off? Where do we say, okay, we don't need these anymore?
Well, and I feel like where I'm at, it's not necessarily a disagreement with. I mean, these are respected people in the community. I do not have the qualifications to directly disagree with them. What I can do is say, if the Health Collaborative wants to leverage this commission's power to mandate something, it has to give this commission the evidence necessary to do it. And the longer this goes, like I said, the higher the burden that is. And that's where I'm at. I'm not in disagreement necessarily with what they're saying. I'm saying we have an obligation to obtain that evidence before we make a mandate.
You know, we're going to have a meeting on the 31st, 30th. So would it be satisfactory, the rest of the commissioners, if we revisit this on the 30th and try to have some of those answers? Try to have some thoughts on that again?
My preference would be to do it on our first meeting in April. I think the fact that we get our critical workers vaccinated, which should be done by then, makes a big difference to me. That allows businesses to be much safer, to have their employees working and so forth.
I think that's a week, and I'm willing to do that. That's April 6th.
April 6th.
April 6th, we'll readdress this.
All right.
I'd like to. That wrong.
Sorry, I did the calendar wrong. The second Tuesday is the 13th of April.
I would like to see this towards the end of March. I don't want to wait till the middle of April myself.
The 30th is 3 weeks. Do we feel like we would be seeing things out of Texas by then, as an example?
Usually there is some lag time there, but if you allow it to that second week in April, we would have more time to get vaccinations out, because you do have to get 2 vaccines in to be, and then another 2 weeks to get that vaccination to be fully functioning. So it does allow that time to be revisited.
Don't you two commissioners take any credibility in the largest Reno and County employer that's a private employer saying that wait to do this until we get our people vaccinated? Don't we need to support our employers that want to take care of their people? They don't want people to be sick.
No, neither do we.
Well,
But we have.
all I'm saying is, I don't see the evidence that they're going to get sick.
So you don't accept the current information from the CDC of being a national standard?
I'm just looking at the data and changing the mandate to a recommendation. I mean, I'm not seeing that is a factor in increased risk.
You know, I think the schools are going to go ahead and require masks. They're going to go ahead and require social distancing, hand washing, all of those things, regardless of whether it's a mandate or whether it isn't, they're going to look after their student. I think our employees are going to look after their employees. I think the businesses will say, hey, we believe that you ought to have a mask to come into our store. So people are going to do that. That's what I saw. And I think the recommendation to do that is where I'm at. And I acknowledge that there are people that are a whole lot smarter on this than I am with more knowledge, but we haven't had that data. I agree with the Commissioner.
Well, you're not going to have all the data even a month from now, but there's just too many variations between communities. I thought your question, Commissioner Friesen, about is our frequency any greater than people that did not have a mask, but you've got age of our county, and we do have one of the oldest age groups in Reno County of any county. My guess is we have more nursing homes in Reno County than the average 65,000 population. It's always been a aging medical community, and most of the times we want that to be. We want people to come here to retire. So I think some of those things that you're asking for are going to be very, very hard to prove one way or another. It seems like to me that we've been successful at getting people over 65, and the first group was people with health conditions, and then we got everybody over 65. I know a lot of people that are in this 55 to 65 age group that's got medical conditions that they're really wanting a vaccination. And
Well, let's go on and decide when we want to have another conversation with this. End of March or what date in April? 2nd?
I think we've
Second meeting.
made
First meeting.
I think we've made our positions known, and if we can be persuaded, and I mean, 3 weeks is plenty of time to do that. So
Put this on it.
April 13th is the first meeting in April.
I'm okay with the end of March.
End of March. Let's put us on the agenda the end of March. Well, we don't have to make a decision on that, but we can certainly have some more information.
So-
We've got information loaded as it is.
I don't agree with Commissioner Sellers that we are so unique that we cannot find the data to correlate our demographics and our community type with a community that isn't mandating masks. It can be done. You guys can deliver that in 3 weeks.
Okay. So put this on the agenda for the 30th of March. All right?
I had a comment related to that, and again, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing what you think is right and fighting for that. I appreciate it. Commissioner Sellers brought up a point that I've heard, and it makes a lot of sense, that there are certain people that have been isolated for a very long time that are under the age of 65. It would make the world of difference for them if they got vaccinated. And understand the importance, and I think I understand the theory behind vaccinating high contact critical workers. But I kind of believe a lot of those people would rather the people that are highest risk get it first. Do we have any leeway in that decision at all? Is that a state decision?
Yes.
It's a state mandate?
But if any of those people do identify as a high contact critical worker, we would vaccinate them.
Right.
Right.
If they showed up to Dillon's, are they checking a box that says you're a high? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
On
So they would refuse their vaccination if they just showed up?
If they're a high contact critical worker?
No, like if somebody, say 50 years old, showed up, they would say we can't do it. You sure?
According to KDHE and the guidance that we have been given from them, we are to stay into phase 2, and that's where we're at now, until they allow us to move to phase 3. They have not given us that approval to move to phase 3 yet.
Are pharmacies bound by that same term?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Regardless of their health condition,
Yes.
they have to wait till 3.
How about physicians?
They're in phase 1.
No, are they bound by the same?
Yes.
Like a physician couldn't prescribe a vaccine?
So the government is, it's a federal program that's sending out all the vaccines. So that's why the vaccine is free to everyone, and therefore they have outlined the phases. Now, we do, if somebody has identified themselves as a high contact critical worker, we would get the vaccine into people's arms. We do not waste that vaccine.
Okay. Do we have an idea when we would shift into phase 3?
I think there's about 6,000 or 7,000 that are in, that we know of right now, off the top of our head, for phase 2. So we're talking another month at least to
But
go to
it-
phase 3,
yeah.
depending on how much vaccine comes to the community. That's the other factor is how much vaccine is coming to the community. That's the unknown. We don't know. Right now, I'm looking at a month. I don't know that if the state or federal government changes that dynamic, we would adjust also. But right now, based on current flow, it'd be another month.
It doesn't even matter if we're done. The whole state has to shift together.
Yes, sir.
That's a little, I don't know. It seems like we need to empower our physicians to make some of those decisions at some point. But it's just my opinion. Thank you both again.
Thanks a lot for your effort. Now, it's not unnoticed, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any announcements myself. When you check on the public comments on items not on the agenda, no one there, all right. Determine additions or revisions to the agenda. Joe, I believe you had an addition with a second privileged legal matter for an executive session.
Yes, and even the third, if we go that long. The second one, and I'll be glad to make these motions because all three this morning concern the subject matter is privileged legal matter with legal counsel. The second one concerns a lease that the county had for a firing range and a proposed new contract for the city of Hutchinson with respect to that property. I would add that as a second. And a third one, a privileged legal matter concerning touching on pending litigation of the Prairie Wind matter pending before the Court of Appeals, and matters concerning the proposed revisions to the wind energy conversion system regulation or zoning regulations.
Okay. All right, and so that will be at the end of the meeting,
Right.
and we will, just go over this one more time, is that we will have no further action on these items after we finish the executive session and adjourn the meeting. There will be no action taken up on those, okay?
On each of the items, we will
Come back into the,
executive come into regular session and move to go into a second, and
Yeah.
the third. At the third, I would expect you to adjourn the day without, at any time, but without formal decision on any of the issues.
I was just trying to let the public know a little bit about the
Sure.
procedure. All right. Any other additions or revisions,
No.
Commissioner?
No.
No thanks.
Randy?
No.
All right. The consent agenda is vouchers totaling $503,913.57. Change orders, 226, 233. I would consider a motion to approve or disapprove those consent agenda.
I'd move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any more discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes?
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes. Going on to business items. Thank you for taking time to wait for this. Hutchinson Fire District Number 2 update by Steve Beer, the Hutchinson Fire Department Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners. We got a little slideshow here for you. Here, I'm going to start out here, and then my Chief of Operations, Chief Hannon, is going to come up here and finish it off for me. And we'll try to make this fast, speed it up here, so we don't tie up all your time here. But it is an honor to be able to present you with a synopsis of our accomplishments over the past year and give you a sneak peek into our organizational goals and objectives. I sent you the 2020 budget update book that you have in front of you, and it gives you a lot of good information. We're becoming a data-driven department. Everything we do revolves around data. If you look at any private business, if you don't update your organizational goals and objectives or business plan, you're basically out of business, and we're no different in the fire service. As your chief, I'm humbled and blessed by the opportunity to continue leading the men and women who are the heart of our department, the bones of our department. I'm in awe of their drive, professionalism, and compassion and skills of our first responders and support staff. They truly understand our core values of teamwork, trust, and commitment. The fire service, like any business, comes with its challenges. Keeping the department members safe, keeping them educated on the latest and most innovative procedures and equipment, staying within budget, when so much of the fire service comes with uncertainty, as we witnessed during this pandemic. Effectively and compassionately providing care in the worst circumstances, and being there for one another after an exceptional tragedy call, to name a few. What is significant is that we overcome these challenges, and what we do is providing outstanding, through our outstanding members of HFD, do every day without fanfare and hardly without notice, simply because they believe in helping others. The report before you gives our program appraisals, too, for each of our core programs, through operations, through training, through everything. You'll see goals and objectives that were put in place, goals and objectives that weren't completed during 2020 that are carried over into 2021. The statistics are quantitative means by which the budgets and staffing are configured. However, it's a dedication of the organization that brings a significance to this accomplishment. This year, and probably May here, we are going to have the chief of Charlotte, North Carolina, along with a staff of 4 other individuals, of chief officers throughout America here. They're going to be coming to Hutchinson, Kansas. They're going to validate, one of the books that I gave you is called our FESM. That has every possible thing in it that you can imagine, from finances to budgets to our operations. There's what they're all performance indicators, and there's 252 of these performance indicators. The best way to describe them as if I throw 252 stones on the ground here, and we take every one of them stones and turn it over, and we examine it. What we're doing, are we doing it good enough? If we're not doing it, how are we going to do it better? And this is really how we operate here, is our continuous improvement. We operate, we analyze, and we improve each and every day. Just because we did something a certain way last year, if there's a better process in place, we're going to change the way we do business. And you see that in every aspect of our organization. So this outside peer review team is planning on coming in here possibly in May. They'll spend an entire week here. They'll be meeting with different department heads, and they'll be validating every one of our performance indicators. They'll be meeting and discussing our weaknesses, our strengths, and then we'll get recommendations from them. This is through the international accreditation. Just like private business has ISO standards, in the fire service, we need to validate what we're doing as best practices with our taxpayer money. What's nice about this process here on the Board of Commission Randy's group here, the county commissioners, has a representative on the board. The city managers association has a representation on the board. It's not just fire people. There's a broad perspective of 13 different individuals representing 13 different agencies. Once we accomplish this, we're hopefully that in July I'll be able to come back with you and inform you that Hutchinson Fire Department, which includes District 2, will be internationally accredited. What does that mean? It's a standard of excellence in our service here, but to put it bluntly, it's very hard to accomplish. There's only 300 some fire departments out of 50,000 that are internationally accredited. Think about that number, then I'll think about this number even a little bit further. Hutch Fire here a year ago became an ISO Class 1 department, the best in the business. And that standard, along with being accredited, there's only 40 other fire departments in the world that have attained them two standards out of 50,000. So it's going to put Hutch Fire on the map for a long time, as we believe we have our processes in place and dialed in. One of the key things we've been able to do this year, and it's only going to get better for you, is we want to provide you, and we gave you a ton of information. If there's any other questions you have throughout the year, everything's in your books for you. We believe you need to make good decisions based on good data. And that keeps the emotions out of the equation. It keeps all the other stuff, ancillary stuff, out of the equation. And opinions and emotions out of it. We don't want to see emotion, opinion-based decision-making. We want to make sure you have the data and the facts in front of you. And so with that being said here, with our new computer software program that we've implemented and our reporting system for every single fire and EMS report, we're finally able to gather some great data. And Chief Hannon is going to just share a snapshot of it for you. But he's got some great data that he will provide for you on this. And I think at this time here, before we get into any questions here, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Hannon, and then we'll open it up here at the end here after we go through this.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Oh, whoa, that was fast. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first data we pulled the last 3 years. When we went through accreditation, that's what they work off is the last 3 years of data. And so this kind of gives you an overall total. These are our overall numbers, including city responses, Fire District 2 responses. And you see over the last 5 years, we're almost up 25% on our call volumes. You can kind of see how they're kind of broke out by how we divide them out by what types of calls were going on. And I'll get to what some of the big differences is. You'll see one down there, the good intent call went up almost 300 runs this year. And I'll have some data later on to kind of show you that. And the service calls went up. Overall, the fire calls are starting to come down, which is typical across the country. The fire calls come down, but other things go up. And one of the parts of the process of going through accreditation was we did a community-driven strategic plan. And that first day we brought in citizens, business people, and others were invited to attend a little luncheon kind of thing. It was driven by an outside agency. We had nothing to do with it, and they were asked certain questions. And so during that question portion, obviously fire suppression was ranked number 1 by those citizens. And right below it, 3 points behind it, 5 points behind it, was our first responder program. So it's very important to our citizens that we're out there doing these types of calls. So we took this and for you guys, we broke it down into what we're doing out in Fire District 2. You can see the numbers are coming down. We kind of went down in 2019, back up in 2020, but we pretty much stay stagnant there at that 450 mark of how many calls we're making out into Fire District 2.
Where's that at? Number 2.
Fire District 2 is the area that surrounds the city of Hutchinson that we're under contract to provide services for. So basically, roughly runs from, it kind of staggers around, but basically Monroe over to Kent Road, all the way to the county line, and then just below South Hutchinson. So that's kind of where Fire District 2 is. So, wow, this thing is touchy. So this is what I was talking about. And last year we worked with Chief Johnston over at Reno County EMS. We also worked with dispatch, and we were seeing a lot of low acuity calls coming in on EMS responses. And so we started working with them on what we could do to kind of to not send so many resources on those low acuity calls that somebody's just, they're feeling ill, or maybe they fell the day before and now they just need transport to the hospital. They really weren't an emergency. So we started working with dispatch, and they started going through what they call an EMD, it's emergency medical dispatching protocols, and they were rating those calls, and they'd go anything from an Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. The Alpha calls are your low acuity calls, and so we did that, and we came back, and Chief Johnson gathered a bunch of data after 6 months, 7 months. We looked at it, and out of those 600 calls that we were able to reduce that we did not respond on, only 12 of those were figured to be a higher acuity call, and they were actually more in the Bravo section. They never got up into the Charlie and Delta calls. So,
what do you mean by acuity?
Seriousness,
Okay.
whether it's an emergency, whether it's life-threatening. You get into echo call, that's a cardiac arrest call. Obviously that's an immediate call. Your deltas, or your chest pains where they need to seek attention quickly. And so we were able to reduce some of those calls. So also with working at dispatch, we wanted them to, and you'll see these numbers a little bit later, is they want to turn that call in less than 60 seconds. And so what they're trying to do now is as soon as they get the address and the call type, they go ahead and dispatch that out, and then they continue on with their questions. And so when they find out that it's an Alpha call that we don't respond on, they'll tell our unit, hey, it's an Alpha call. Our unit will disregard and return to the station. So that gets coded as a good intent call. It's a dispatched and canceled route. So that's why those call numbers went up last year. Mm-hmm. So it was actually a very good program. It keeps the resources off the road and keeps them available for more life-threatening things. So this is kind of how we break down the days of the week and the time of the day. You can kind of see Wednesdays are usually our busiest days. Sundays are our slowest days. We start ramping up, right after people start going to work into about midnight, and it kind of slowly draggles down as the time of day. So this is kind of our save rate. That 91% is that's a total for the whole department. That's including the city and Fire District 2. And pretty proud of that number. It's all about getting resources there, getting the quality and the quantity of resources there on scene, getting the number of personnel. We broke it down into Fire District 2, and that one circle is 70%. We had a grader catch on fire on North Halstead last year. It was a $325,000 machine. Had pretty significant damage, and then we lost a complete guy's crop. And so we only had one structure fire that was out in Fire District 2 last year, so that number may be a little bit low, but that's where that 70% comes from.
You might, if I'm correct on this, Daniel asked the question of your boundaries. If I remember right, doesn't Fire District 2 go to west of town to Dean Road?
It does, yes. So, yeah, that far. Like I said, it kind of cuts through there a little bit, so, yeah.
There it is.
So, yeah, there's a better map of it. So, the white circle down in the bottom, that's South Hutchinson, kind of gives you your landmarks there a little bit. So those are kind of our territories. And so these are the calls that are actually occurring inside those territories. Station 3, which is out at the south part of our town, continues to be the front runner for a number of calls for service in that area. And that's basically 5th Street South is that. And so every unit actually has a response out into Fire District 2, with the exception of Fire Station 1, which is in the middle of town. It's surrounded by other stations, so all those other units are running out into Fire District 2. Here's our brush fire history. Obviously, in 2017, we had a spike, and that would have been the Jupiter Hills Highland fire season. We've seen a very sharp decrease last year. We had a little bit of wet spring, which helped us quite a bit. But we roughly run about that 70 number there. You kind of see where we were last year with 2020. And so that's kind of where we're at. So it is very weather dependent, as you guys are well aware of. So depending on what our weather is how we operate. So here's a breakdown of the annual budget and how that's broke down into what the city's portion is and what Fire District 2's portion is. Just a little graph there on how things are spelled out in our budget. Obviously salaries are the big portion of it. So here's the big report that we work with accreditation. It's called an ERF. It's what that stands for is Effective Response Force. And what we do is we take every call type that we go on and we determine what are the necessities, tactical items that have to be done to equate for that situation to be resolved. So, for example, on a structure fire, we try to send 16 people. So that equates to about 5 pieces of equipment with 3 people on it and a battalion chief. And so that's what we send in the city. We send a little bit more out in the county. We send 18 because we have to take our own water with us. So we send some tender trucks, water trucks to go with that. So these kind of break it down. Like I said, that very first section up there, the alarm handling, that's at dispatch. We want them to try to turn that call in 60 seconds. You can kind of see we're a little bit over that number. We've been working very aggressively with dispatch to kind of help that. In 2022, we're trying to get a new up-to-date station alerting system. What that would do, it would work hand in hand with the CAD system we already have. But as soon as the dispatcher can take that call type and get the address and get the recommended units, in the background, a computer is starting to voice that out to the station. So the dispatcher can remain on the call with the person, and in the background, it's alerting the stations to continue to respond. So we'll be working with dispatch on that. Just looking at the rule, the first unit, the travel time or the overall response time there at the bottom, you can kind of see as the aggregate fire, that's all fires put together. We're about 12 minutes and 45 seconds is where we're usually setting at for that first unit to respond, the overall. That's from the time somebody calls 911 to the time the first unit arrives on scene. Actually, the standard is 14 minutes, so we kind of meet that pretty good. And then our ERF time for the whole effective response force, and obviously since we didn't have any major structure fires, these numbers are a little bit skewed. So we have been focusing on our turnout times. When we started this, we try to get our guys out the door in 1:20 at a max, and we were up in the 2 minutes, 2:15, and we really made a push with our people last year, and we set a goal for ourselves to get down to the 140 range. And I have the December stats, and we were at 141 for the month of December. So our guys are doing a lot better at that. They're focusing on that. We still have a little bit more to work on that, and we're putting some things in the station play to help them improve on that thing. So things like that they're moving well. So the other thing that I'd like to talk about this is not averages. This is accreditation works to the 90th percentile. So this means 90% of the time, these are the times we're getting out the door or we're arriving on scene. So it's not just an average. It's actually at the 90th percentile. So there's going to be a few outliers here and there, but for the most part, that's where we are. So it's kind of quick and fast. You guys have any questions?
I do. Chief, you say that on this accreditation process, there's a whole bucket of pebbles that you've got to meet these qualifications and so forth. I guess, would you briefly discuss the whole state and nation is having trouble with physical condition of our people with being overweight and out of shape? What's the criteria for physical condition, and are you meeting that in your department?
I can say for Hutch Fire, we definitely are meeting our physical conditions here. One of the things that every one of my firefighters have to do is, on a yearly basis, is run what we call the Pac Test. That Pac Test is part of their wildland certification. Every one of our firefighters, and they just did it within the last month, we go down to the sports arena, they have to put on a 45-pound vest, weighted down with lead basically, and they have to walk 3 miles walk. They cannot run under 40 minutes. And that's one of the things they have to do to annually comply with staying in shape and stuff like that. Obviously, with the pandemic, has caused some issues with all the stuff that we could normally do on a normal year. But the firefighters pride themselves in our training. We logged roughly, every firefighter had to do a minimum of 240 hours of training, hands-on training last year to maintain our ISO 1. We came in as a department over 40,000 hours of training last year. When I say there's many good organizations out there, But what this accreditation process does, on top of anything else, I would say 90% of the fire departments out there are good organizations, but there are very few great organizations. And that's what really separates the difference between the two, is all these performance indicators, the things that we're doing, making sure we're doing industry best practices. If we don't get it right on the training ground and we take it over to the fire side of things, we get somebody injured or killed. It's as simple as that. We got to get it right on the training grounds. This is very, very dangerous work. From just driving with lights and siren to a call is very, very dangerous. And so everything that we do, I don't want to be that chief that knocks on somebody's door at 2 o'clock in the morning and said we just lost a firefighter. So I make sure we're doing everything under the best practices, under state statutes, and we have everybody buying into that continuous improvement model in the organization. And that's where it puts Hutch Fire on the map for the standards of excellence that we're in right now.
So you're saying the condition of your firefighters is excellent?
Stellar.
Okay. The second question, many of us believe that one of the highest, biggest problems in Hutchinson and Reno County is the condition of our housing stock not being as good as it should be and appropriate for living conditions. Could you just briefly state the condition of houses and how that relates to your business of firefighting?
Yeah, we've seen it this winter with a cold snap. There for a stretch with the cold weather, we were running a structure fire or multiple structure fires every day. When people's heat gets turned off, the gas gets turned off and stuff like that, they use alternative heat sources, and that caused numerous fires as far as structural firefighter goes. We actually take the data that Chief Hannon presented here, we actually take heat maps, and we can hone in on a section of the city where if we have like 4 or 5 fires right in a key area, we can hone in on that and do an educational campaign in that area. One thing that we do, whether it's in District 2 or if it's in the city, anytime we have a fire, a lot of times we'll have 40, 50 people standing around with their phones filming us and taking pictures and stuff like that, but they don't really know what happened. So we canvass a 2-block radius around the neighborhood, and we knock on every door. If they're not there, we'll leave them a door hanger, but we talk to the neighbors. We let them know why we cut a hole in the roof, why we knocked out a window, why that hose went through the front door here. And on top of that, if they want a free home inspection, we'll schedule that where we'll come back into their home and maybe they need assistance putting up a smoke detector. Maybe they have some questions for us, but we'll offer that to our citizens. And it's been a great program to educate people in core areas where we see fire problems. But your Commissioner, you're exactly right. We do have a fire problem. It's not unique to Hutch. A lot of these older parts of town where the wiring is bad, we've had a lot of the knob and tube wiring issues going on again. Them just get overloaded. People plug in 6, 12 prong adapters and they plug in all these high heaters and it just overloads the circuits. And we see that in our older stock of homes.
Okay, final question. Last year you told us that you had an aggressive ongoing training program in District 2 for the wildfire mitigation, particularly to change conditions around people's homes in that area. How are you doing on that education?
And that's we wrote a grant again this year for that the spyglass section and up in 43rd up there. We're waiting the results from the State Forestry Service on this year. The first year we didn't get the grant, and so if that goes through, that's going to be really a test pilot for the state here of Kansas here, working with the Forestry Service on that. On top of that, if you've seen the news lately here, we just completed another 9 miles of mitigation work. Chief Hannon and myself, we sat down and we looked at 20 years of history of fires. And when you put a map and you GIS them out on a map system, there's a common theme with every one of the fires, is that they jump the roads in key spots every time. And so when we do these mitigation efforts here, we're looking at history. We're looking at how we can make a stand. And these subdivisions that we protect, especially on Plum, all these subdivisions in District 2 up there on 69th and stuff, how can we protect fire from entering these subdivisions? Because we know from history we lost a bunch of houses in 17 up in that way. And so what can we do to prevent that? And I'll just use Plum Street as one example here, where you got a road that's 30 feet wide. By burning the ditches off on each side in these key areas, that gives us 80 feet to start a back burn off of. And it gives us something to anchor off of. And not only that, but the training we get out of it, for we are a young department. And the training is priceless. Just to watch these young men and women grow, getting accustomed to grabbing drip torches and laying fire down, fighting fire with fire, is priceless. And so we take the history, lessons learned, combine in a package, and try to prevent what happened in 17. Just look at what's going to happen today, tonight, up to 50-mile-an-hour winds. It was proven yesterday. We had a handful of grass fires yesterday we were on. You still throw in the human nature, the human element, and what I'll say sometimes stupidity that's out there, and people that don't think about the big picture. They burn on a calm day, but knowing the wind's going to kick up to 50 mile an hour the next day, guess what? All these embers kick up and they start another fire. And so we need your help as commissioners too, at our end, to keep my men and women safe during these challenging times when we're under these high conditions. And so I think that relationship, it goes both ways between the fire departments and the commissioners.
How are you getting along with finding owners of property, of pastures primarily, that you can say, okay, we may need to get in there, and so we need your permission or whatever. I don't know how that process works, but could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, and Chief Hannon really handles all that type of stuff with some of the individuals that we were adjacent to, that we were burning, and honestly, every single person has been phenomenally good to get in. We close our gates, we take care of it, we understand the ruts in the pasture, we'll bring a UTV in if needed. It's their property, it's their livelihood, so we want to make sure we don't damage nothing, but also have that great communication. And it's been, for the most part here, I can't think of one single time where somebody's had an issue or didn't get along with it or didn't see the foresight of what we had going on. One thing that I will tell you, though, and I think it's important for you guys to hear this too, is that last year we sent, after our wildfire season, we sent a bunch of our crews out west. And if you read the paper and stuff, one of the things that your fire department is doing right now is I'm trying to fund my wildland program without local taxpayer money. And so every time we send our units out west with 3 people on, they get paid. We get reimbursed for the vehicle, the personnel, equipment, everything. Last year's number, it takes about a year to get reimbursed from the federal government, but last year we'll probably $70,000. We'll roughly put $70,000 into a wildland fund to help fund our wildland equipment. And so it's a big thing for us. Not only do they get great experience from out west coming back here, but I plan to fund our wildland program, which means brush trucks and stuff like that, through the federal government's reimbursement programs.
I appreciate the report. This is really impressive to me, Chiefs. I think you've clearly done a lot of work and worked very hard, and I appreciate the high standards you've set for yourself and as an example for other agencies in the county and the city. And this is I'm very impressed and really appreciate what you're doing for our community. So thank you, and I hope we're doing everything on our side to help you, and certainly extend the offer to do anything else we can to help your efforts. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Commissioner, and it's not me. This is my team. I got a great team of people to work with. The team, this department, is something, I say that all the time, and I've been to many departments between visits and stuff. We have some of the best darn firefighters and officers you could ever have.
Yeah.
Right here, and I'm proud to say that. And so there's a lot of talent here, a lot of gifted men and women that are dedicated to the cause. They don't do it for the dollars.
Yeah.
They can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and make more money than they're working as an entry-level firefighter.
Well,
and so they do it for something more. It's that passion, that drive that they do it for.
It's definitely evident you have a very great team. So Thank you again.
And maybe next year, we'll have another annual public awards banquet
Yes.
that I'd encourage the commissioners to go to. Very, very informational and impressive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Patiently waiting is Shelley Bredmeyer.
Never know how long it's going to take, do we?
Review of the annual 2020 Youth Services Report by
I will
Shelley.
be brief. Good morning. Just want to say, first of all, 2020 was a very, very different year for us at Youth Services. Our staff stepped up tremendously through all the challenges. We were like everybody else at home, that their children couldn't go to school, and our staff become teachers and mothers and fathers, and so they stepped up and did a wonderful job for our facility. So I just want to briefly go through my annual report, just to touch on a couple of the data on each page. Not a whole, I won't go through every detail. In the beginning of our book, it shows our Employee of the Year, who is Fran Hostetler. She's been with us for 8 years. She was selected from being a member of the Employee of the Month. We recognize an employee every month, and so she was selected from that category. Like I said, our staff do a tremendous job. It's a hard job, but they step up every day and make it work. So on page 2 there, our shelter demographics, it shows that we had 158 youth in our shelter. It is down, it's 122, down from last year. I will tell you that COVID kind of froze admissions. When it hit in March and April and May, we kind of held our kids where they were, and the state of Kansas kind of left kids where they were so that we can kind of protect that from the virus. Reno County had 41, still the most popular placing agent. Our average age is 16 in our shelter. That continues to be true most of the time. On page 3 there, it shows kind of a little bit about parental situation. This is kind of something we like to track just to kind of see what contributes to kids' placements. And for Reno County, the highest one was 20% at no parents at all to have those children go home to. So that's pretty startling for our Reno County. And for the overall percentages, 28% of the youth come from a one-parent home. That's a very consistent data that we have, that the most of our children do come home from one-parent homes. Page 4, it talks about our census days. Reno County occupied 563 days, our most from all counties that we do house. That runs true for the most part as well. Our shelter admission reasons on page 5 continues to be in it parents are unable to care for. With being, Reno County's is 46% of those numbers. Consistently, it's a pattern that we mostly see due to drugs or home situation is why they are not able to keep the children at home. Page 6, our detention, we had 218 placements in detention, which was down quite a bit. And I will have to blame COVID again. Back in March and April and May, courts closed across the state of Kansas. And when a child comes to detention, they have to have a detention hearing within 48 hours. And I believe that was a lot of the reasons they did not bring kids to detention. I will tell you that January and today we are full. So I know we're getting back to normal. 60 of those 218 were from Reno County. Our average age in detention is 17. Again, on page 7, parental situations, 27% of Reno County have come from a one-parent home. On page 8, we talk a little bit about admissions and census. Reno County had 528 days. They were the most from our contracting counties. with Harvey and Ellis being close behind with 400 and 500 days of beds. Page 9, I will point out one thing here that's really alarming. These are the reasons for admissions to our detention facility. And if you look there in the under person offenses up there in the left-hand corner, last year we housed 4 juveniles for murder. I will tell you today we've already housed 4 this year that are different. That's an alarming statistic that we've not seen in the years past. That's a very rarity, but we've already admitted 4 this year, so we're already matching 2020s for murder.
What do you think what's causing that?
I don't know. Some of these numbers, I can't. It would just be a guess as to why these kids are now up against. I think they were out of school all year. They're hanging around. They have little limited supervision. It's a guess, but it's just like today we were talking. I'm like, we have 3 currently, and we've had 4 already this year. So we hope that trend slows down a little bit, but that wasn't alarming statistics. Then the number 1, of course, is aggravated assault regarding our person offenses. Page 10. These are Reno County reasons. So we have close to a 3-way tie: aggravated assault, criminal threat, and assault and battery for our person offenses. Non-person offenses would be warrants. A lot of those are failure to appear or not following through with their probation guidelines. On page 11, our intake and assessment, this data is always important and interesting because all of the juveniles that come through intake and assessment are Reno County juveniles. So it gives us a good snapshot of our community. Our count was way down. It's only 539 because at the tip of when this whole virus started, the police department and the sheriff's department, they had made a rule, which was a smart one for them and for us as well, that if it wasn't an active case, violent case happening at the time, they would not respond. I mean, they would respond to families, but they weren't taking them out of the home. They could deal with them settle them down at the house. A lot of times, they would bring them to our facility so we could do mediation with the families and work through whatever crisis they're going through. But during this pandemic, they weren't pulling kids that quickly. So I know that had a factor. But I will draw your attention to birth to 1 year. I know that Bill Hermes talked last year. 2019, we had 40 babies under the age of 1 brought through our facility. And it's dropped down to 17 in 2020. I don't have an explanation for that because I could tell you today, year to date for 2021, we already had 11 come through. So I don't know if COVID played a factor in how they screen that system, or I've talked to my employers and say why that drop has happened. And already for this year, we've had 11. So if we continue on our trail of what we're doing now, we're going to surpass the 40, but we will see what that looks like. We had 539 last year. We're already up to 109 just in the 2.5 months that we've been, back up. So I think now that kids are back to school, our children have more eyes on them. They identify some areas of crisis. And so I think that's probably why we are seeing a big increase this whole year so far. Schools are a safe haven for a lot of our children, so it's good that they're back in school and they have more people taking care of them and identifying some issues or concerns. On intake and on page 12, just a little 2020, 50 kids come through for assault and battery. Non-person, the highest was for vandalism, 25. Again, we had several runaways, 90 runaways, and 74 were brought to us because parents were unable to care for. On page 13, final, some of these statistics here are becoming more and more alarming. If you look at a suicide attempt, these are interview questions that we ask all children if they've ever thought about hurting themselves or killing themselves. That number now is up to 45% of our kids that are brought in through our intake and assessment, up from 35 from last year. Or, I'm sorry, from 2019. So that's a significant increase. I'm sorry, I had the wrong number. 28. This up from 18 to 28%.
Is that, I've been hearing the same thing from the school counselors.
Is that right? Yeah.
That
I heard it from a pediatrician.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, these kids were isolated for a long time. They were removed from their families. They're bored. A lot of issues. But so we're hoping 2021 that statistic will look different. But that was a high increase. Also, school suspensions or expulsions. 58% of our kids that have come through our intake and assessment in 2020 have experienced suspension or expulsions. That's up quite a bit. I mean, that's consistent from last year, but that was a consistent. That's a huge number that have had problems in school. But another statistic is substance abuse. The alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. As you can see, that they're all jumped up to 50% now and more. And these are all ages of kids. We have kids young telling us that they're using marijuana or they're drinking. 10, 11, 12-year-olds. So that's an alarming statistic for Reno County. So we hope that with education in school and things like that, we'll get that number back down. But that's a quick synopsis of that. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I think you always do an excellent job of defining what problems are, as well as the ages and so forth that comes about. I think that's an indication of the problems we had when we stopped sending kids to school.
Yeah, and I hope that now that our intake and assessment's open, we're now doing face-to-face interactions. We had to go to phone. It's just not the same. We get the parents and the children in the office, and they talk about the ugly stuff and work it out, and then we're able to get them home and make it successful for them to go home, rather than have the crisis continue at home just over a telephone call. So I know that's why our intake and assessment numbers are really growing, because families are able to come anytime they have issues with their kids, and we'll help them through that.
Shelley, have you already forgot about that Bill guy that used to be around?
Oh, no, I don't forget about Bill.
Don't forget about Bill?
Nope. He hangs around. I see him every once in a while. I have lunch with him once a month. No, he's good.
I had a question on where your funding sources. Where do your funds come from?
We have a per diem rate from DCF for our child in need of care, and then our contracted counties pay for our detention facility.
Okay. So does it require the county tax funds, or is it just self-funded?
There is money from the general fund that is allocated to our budget as well.
Do you know what percentage?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Do not have my budget with me, so.
No, that's good. This is good. These are good
I
statistics.
will tell you, though, even with our numbers low in shelter, we actually had an increase in our per diem throughout our COVID year. We actually received in October of 2019, we went from 130 to 152 per diem per day. And then during COVID, I think it was March through May, they also paid us another $39 a day extra because our kids were home for lunch. And so they increased our per diem up to $191 during that time. And then just this past October in 2020, our per diem for DCF placements went up to $181. So we've had a significant increase in over a year in our per diem for our custody kids, DCF kids.
Well, one thing I would like to see on the next report is just a little bit of a financial breakdown.
Okay.
Just, where your funding sources are, what percentage of, funding comes from Reno County taxpayers, and what's,
Sure.
rate pay or per diem, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
That would be helpful. It's just, I was surprised with your statistics about how much significant out-of-county intake you have. It looks maybe about a 2/3 almost, or more.
On our intakes, or our shelter, or detention?
Just I think both, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, we are a statewide agency,
Mm-hmm.
so that we do house those, but we are available. And sometimes when our numbers are high, we try very hard to keep our, Reno County kids here when we have that opportunity.
Well, I think that would be a great supplement sometime when you get time, just to shoot that over to us. But this is good. I mean, it obviously shows where your mission is, and appreciate your work. Thank you.
Sure. So to clarify, you want that funding source before next year? You're wanting it?
I might like to see it when you
Okay.
have time.
Okay,
Just
perfect.
no rush.
I'd encourage you, if you haven't been over there already, why, take the tour.
I would love to give you a tour.
Yeah, I would be
Absolutely.
happy to do that. I've got a
It was
little
quite
backlog.
interesting, wasn't it, Commissioner Sellers, to go through that?
Yep.
To
Yeah, we're
learn.
getting ready for our licensing on the 24th, so I know that that's coming up, and we already had our food service audit, and that went well, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
report.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Randy, I turn this over to you now for membership with Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce.
I'll bring this up. At the meeting, the special meeting on January 30th, the county commission, during the goal setting session, talked about becoming a member of the Hutchinson Chamber of Commerce. So I had discussions with the chamber and looked at the different options and what other public entities are chamber members. Reno County is not a member currently, but as you can see on this list, Bueller's Economic Development, City of Hutch, Pretty Prairie, South Hutch, the Community College, Haven Public Schools, Hutch Public Schools, Nickerson, South Hutch Public Schools, and Bueller Public Schools. So I just wanted you to kind of see what other public entities are members. The options for membership range from a few $100s to a few $1,000s. With what I had asked the chamber was kind of as a comparison what the City of Hutchinson and Hutchinson Community College are at, since they are similar sized organizations, and they are the cornerstone level, and that ranges between $1,500 and $4,000, or a little bit less than that. So when I talked to the chamber, especially last week, on the rates, the non-government rate based on the base amounts for chamber membership, and then it looks at the number of employees, and there's a formula that I didn't list here, but it would be $2,775. That would be kind of the fair market, a comparison of what Reno County could enter at. The option I think they would approve, if we still wanted to be a cornerstone, didn't want to pay that amount, would take $1,500 and still allow us in the cornerstone member level. If that wasn't the direction the commission wanted to go, a different number could be looked at. And I have on here the different levels: connector, builder, and the cost per member, a cornerstone. We would cornerstone. Let me go down. It of course includes all of the previous levels, but then adds exclusive annual meeting with board of directors, the 6 months online digital marketing, a flash pass for access to all membership breakfasts and lunches, and then multiple, the directory. And then, of course, it goes through the various other benefits connector. I won't read all these, just kind of wanted to give you a quick overview. My recommendation would be to come in at the, as I have on here, the cornerstone level at the non-government amount that I was given last week of $2,775. I didn't put on here the Kansas Association of Counties. That's another membership. I think it's around $13,000 to be a member of that. National Association of Counties is a little less than $2,000, I believe, just as comparisons for larger associations that Reno County is a member versus the local membership.
I think it's important to support this relationship and partnership, and I'd be ready to make a motion unless I'd make a motion to approve the county administrator's recommendation for the option one, $2,775 per year.
Okay. Been moved to join the Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce at the cornerstone level of $2,775.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I was not aware that we weren't a member during my 2 years of term on the county commission, and so it was a surprise to me that we aren't a member. Obviously, we support the chamber with monies for economic development and so forth, but I think it's, as Commissioner Friesen has made in his motion, I think it's important to be part of the chamber. I would encourage you as our administrator to encourage as many people on your staff as appropriate to take parts in their various programs. They have, I want to say numerous, and it's more than numerous programs that different parts of the county staff should be involved in. So if we're going to do this, which I think we should, let's be involved.
Okay.
And let's get your staff involved in different committees and departments of the chamber.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
The next item's mine also. So.
Yes, go on with
Okay.
the audio-visual video proposal for the Annex conference room.
Okay, this was another item that had been mentioned during that special commission meeting, the goal-setting session. You as a commission had asked me to look, Mike and I, to look into what it would cost to outfit the conference room over at the Annex across the street to allow for county commission meetings to be held over there, and outfit it similar to what the Public Works conference room has, in addition to the TriCaster mobile that would allow for streaming as we're doing today live. The cost for just the audio and visual is $20,000 to install. The TriCaster add-on that would be $10,500. So the total would be $30,500. This was mentioned briefly at the last meeting in my report. The commissioners, you guys had indicated you wanted me to talk with the directors that are over there at the Annex to see, other than county commission meetings, is there a use for this technology? And in the discussion, it came out as we started brainstorming, all the directors over there had ideas about different classes they could hold and recording and record them for people that aren't able to attend, whether it's distancing or just distance, like regional meetings they could have, or training they could give to various members of the public and record it, put it on the YouTube page. The audio and visual options, this technology would allow for far more videoing and classes to be held over there than just the county commission meetings. They were all very supportive and positive over there, and of course, that's just the departments over there. Other departments at the courthouse or other buildings can still use that conference room when it's available to use this technology.
Okay, now we broadcast live planning commission meetings from Public Works. So does that mean we have a TriCaster there?
Yeah, you do.
Yes, we do to be able to do that.
Okay. Takes a TriCaster to do the live part?
It's the technology we have. It's the equipment we have.
It's one of different types.
So if we were to have a commission meeting over there, we could do it with the equipment there to broadcast
Yes.
as well as to save the meetings, right?
Yes, with this, we could, yes, run a meeting very similar to what's here. Yes.
Randy, did you get a chance to talk about some of the logistics and security issues that, I mean, right now when you walk into the annex, it's kind of a busy hall, and you're walking right through all the people that are waiting. Have we thought about that?
Yes, kind of talked about it. We probably could have security over there for one in a corner and kind of with a wand or kind of check people and make sure things are going smoothly. There may be days, if it's the end of the month, especially like Fifth Tuesday, where a lot of people are getting their tags. There's going to be a kind of crowd. You just have to carefully walk through. There is a back door that I believe they said we could use. So there are options to make it work without getting in the way of the tag office. Because that's really the main department over there that's going to be busy a lot of the time.
I think we should do this, and I think we'll find that we'll save in excess of $30,000 in the next 2 or 3 years just on having people attend meetings via that room instead of travel and taking full days for a meeting. We've learned during COVID that Zoom is a fantastic approach towards learning and so forth, and to have another place in the county to do this, I think, is going to pay for itself.
My main concern that I asked Ray to check on was use. If it's only going to be used a little bit, I question the value. But we found out that many people would have use of that and could use it.
That's correct. And I think once it's up and running, more people will have ideas or find the availability and the benefit from it. So it will get used more.
What about just the logistics of resources here? Your office is here, Joe's office is here. Is that going to work out okay?
For the commission side, yes. I mean, once, at least for me, I can't speak for Joe, but once I bring my tablet and stuff, I don't need to go back to my office once the commission meeting starts. So, and with the technology, Citrix, my desktop or my tablet looks just like my tablet, or the tablet looks just like the desktop, so I can't tell a difference being in the office or in here.
And when do we expect some recommendations on a commission chambers here?
I believe it's in April. We should be getting sometime in April. We're supposed to get a report from the architect, kind of some ideas of what we could do with the courthouse to alter commission meeting room areas and office space. Then, of course, there's going to be cost estimates and budgeting for that. So at the earliest, probably budget for next year to do some renovations.
I guess my last question, because this all came about because we had a study session over there, and it seemed like
I think it came about because one of our new commissioners says that the county needs to be more involved in technology.
yeah, maybe that too.
I think you started this.
Yeah, but it also had some relationship to us just being down there for a meeting, well lit kind of open space, and from our experience over at the Public Works and their system and how it worked. And I guess the only other thought I had is the downstairs here, the veterans room. It's an open space too. Is it not conducive to commission meetings?
We could have commission meetings down there, yes, and it's probably set up ready to go quicker.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the heating and air kicks on. It's very loud down there when it does kick on. And then because of the column in the middle of the room, the optics, the vision for people watching it is a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be used. The Annex conference room, as you guys saw from the meeting in January, is a larger open space that doesn't have a lot of blockage in there.
I really don't see any disadvantage, Commissioner Seller's point, that was my point, to putting investing in this, and that we may one day want to do one more here, and I can see some advantages to Annex staff using this all the time that are well beyond our couple times a month. So I'd be for this and motion to approve the audio visual expenditures for the $30,500 as recommended, option 1.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the proposal for the audio video proposal for the Annex conference room of $30,500. And any more discussion? I think you bring up a good point, though, in the fact that we may look at configuration within the courthouse, that we may need another one of these later on. All right, more discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes. Okay. Do we have a time frame from them?
No, I would have to get back with them, so
That's fine.
I'd probably say it's a couple months out.
Just curious. All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a 5-minute recess?
You may ask for that, and as far as I'm concerned, we can grant that. Is all right with you, Commissioner Sellers?
Sure. I'm glad I'm the decision maker around.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order after our recess to take up commercial wind energy conversion systems proposed regulation. And I have had a request from one person and from the also from the commission. So I give you about 3 or 4 minutes.
Sure.
Yes, and state your name, where you're from, who you represent.
You bet. Well, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jason West. I'm with several businesses here in town. Genzato Pharmaceuticals, we're looking for a cancer cure. Geochemicals is an oilfield services company. We make products for downhole application oil and gas industry. And maybe a little lesser known company that we have as well going on is called the Sterling Group. We oversee the design and construction of complex manufacturing facilities throughout the world. And so wanted to just basically, I'm sorry, I'm at 303 North Mayfield is my address. Here today just basically to speak in favor of the NextEra Wind project. I don't have any information on regulations or anything like that, so I don't have any comment on those. But I do know that, or what I've heard recently is that the Commission's heard from some of the folks that may not necessarily be in favor of the project, and I thought it was important for those of us in the community that are in favor of it to also give you our perspective as well, just so you have some balanced information coming in. And so basically just wanted to spend about, give you about 3 points that I think are particularly relevant here. One is renewables. Renewable energy I think is good for everyone. I'm not sure that that's necessarily too debatable or controversial of an opinion, but obviously where we put these renewable projects is a matter of some debate. If Kansas is synonymous with wind, then I think we should be leading in this category in particular. And I have friends all over the country. They don't know very much about Kansas, but they know that it's windy, and they know there's Dorothy and Ruby Red slippers. And so this is something that even folks from Florida and elsewhere are aware of. This is going to sound a little strange from a guy who just told you he's in the oil and gas industry. Oil and gas is going to run out. And the communities that are prepared for that eventuality, I think, are the communities that will survive. The ones that aren't are the ones that are going to struggle pretty hard. And so I think it behooves all of us to be prepared for the future. From an economic standpoint,
I don't have to tell you guys this. Tax revenue fills our coffers. Those coffers allow us to go out and recruit new businesses. We do that on an informal basis. So me and several of my colleagues all the time trying to recruit businesses into this community. And a strong coffer basically gives some ammunition to do exactly like that. Better tax base, nobody can disagree with that as well. The third thing I think I want to just, leave you with, if you will, is with the future. And I missed your editorial, Commissioner Sellers, but I agree with your comment. I heard about it out there in the hallway, as a matter of fact. Not too awful long ago, we had some of our city leadership and county leadership that sent some representatives to Topeka. They said, we don't want that interstate in our town. And today, we are feeling the effects of that still. And it's made life a lot more difficult to recruit businesses and so forth. So I think 50 years from now, we want to think about how we're viewed by history and the decisions that we make today. If we turn down projects like this, I think what we're communicating to the rest of the world is that we're not open for business. And I think that's something that we need to think very hard about. If we're not open for business, then, what are we all doing here at the end of the day? On a more personal note, I've got 4 daughters, 16, 15, 13, and 11. And if you guys if you want to pray for me at the next meeting, please add me to the prayer list.
A minute more.
Yes, sir. They're thinking about what they want to do when they grow up. They're thinking about going to college, far off places, Illinois, Tennessee, and so forth. And I desperately want them to come back here and have something to do when they come back with a degree. And a strong economic community is going to do exactly that. So at the end of the day, I think in terms of for the greater good, the benefits drastically outweigh the burdens. So that's all I had. Obviously, any questions, but
thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Okay. Let's see, Mark and Don are here. Here for questions or no? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
obviously, I think most of the people watching our meeting today know that we only have 3 county commissioners. We're not allowed to speak each other or communicate in any way between meetings. But it appears to me that one of our commissioners possibly isn't ready to vote on the 3 major things that we're still debating, that being distance from a non-participating property, sound, and flicker. And if that individual isn't ready to vote on this, I'd suggest that we put this off and not take this issue up again until he's ready to vote on the issue. Because obviously Commissioner Hurst and I disagree on what those standards should be, so the third vote is very important on this issue. So if
well, and I appreciate that, Commissioner Sellers, and I think you had heard from conversations I had with certain individuals that are working on this issue behind the scenes, and certainly don't want to, Mr. Chairman, impede your own work on this matter, but I'm not ready to make any decisions today, and I think the particular entities that are affected, I think there's opportunity yet for them to come together, so this issue is less divisive when we decide. I understand specifically we're not talking about any one project, but again, it's important to me that we apply it, that we look at the impact of the likely applications here, and I think the likely applications are fairly limited. And so getting this right on the front end, as I stated previously, is very important to me because I don't want to spend the next year to 2 years going down and ending up in the same position we are. And so I think the different interests involved, specifically those that are most affected, the property owners, and both participating and non-participating, should have some discussions with the economic development interests of this community, the Hutch Chamber, and there's been a significant amount of economic development interest in this matter, and I think that's something we missed previously, is that some of this could perhaps be solved or at least discussed better outside of this particular forum. And so this is my encouragement by not making a decision today, that the parties should look to some potential outcomes that benefit both, and I think it encourages that when we don't make a decision today. So.
Okay. I think it's gone on a long time, but I want to ask my fellow commissioners, what do you think is the single most important asset of Reno County?
That sounds like a trick question, but I could try. I mean, I think it's the people of Reno County.
To provide future economic opportunities to everybody within Reno County.
Okay. I think it's the people. And I question, and this goes along with helping us all make decisions. Why are we even trying to make a WEX work in the zoned area?
Well,
they were zoned for a purpose. Population increases with the movement to desired rural living caused a need to have an orderly housing development, maintain and protect the rural environment, place industrial projects in suitable locations, and many others, including not to conflict with the comprehensive plan as a WEX does in the zoned areas. And I can give you the page numbers on if you want to investigate that situation. Was Siemens offered that Reno County would put in a WEX if they came to Hutch? I would hope not, because that is circumventing local control. If not, then the seemingly political pressure put upon Reno County is null and void. Siemens came here because of several reasons. It was a central location. There was adequate incentives, including building a railroad for that area, which not only helped them, but helped the particular development of manufacturing in that area. It was workforce from Wichita, Reno County, surrounding areas, and the potential for increased nacelle sales in Kansas and surrounding states. Reno County Economic Development Program could certainly help in many ways Siemens to be sustainable and extremely important to our area in other ways besides just this one project in this one particular area. I believe that we can help them out. If a small 5-footed blade in Hutch was shut down at night, why isn't that good enough for a rural area to shut a 175-foot nacelle down at night? Just one example. In virtually every county I have visited with, and it's been several, that has a WEX system in their county said that they would do things different now that more knowledge has been gained and more information has been learned. But sometimes we only tend to listen to the corporate sales pitch and not necessarily to what our people think, as well as looking at the net future profit gain that can come about both if we have and if we don't have this particular system in this particular area. If production tax credits go away, decrease in value, I don't think they won't be near as profitable as they were. And if we look at the fact that they're, according to EPA, is only 40% efficient, there are good source, that and solar are good sources, supplemental energy. No getting around that. But I think you may see nuclear, just as they were during this real critical cold area, how much Jeffries and Burlington came on stream to help us out. We have wind assets, no getting around that. Some areas are more efficient than others. Reno County also has some of the best assets any geographical area could want, and that's capable, quality, hardworking people. We need to listen to these folks from time to time, especially those that live in the affected area, since over 85% are not interested in this. They don't want the industrial area in this particular rural area. Now, I know if you drive over down off of Yoder Road, Haven Road, and you drive down over the breaks, that's pretty picturesque country. I think that Reno County has the ability to have wind energy systems in Reno County if people want it. And I think there's areas that people would want a WEX. Not that many more miles to build transmission lines, either way you look at it. Yes, a little bit more. I'm not one to ridiculously spend any hard-earned taxpayers' money, tax dollars, in a court case that I'm pretty sure that we would lose based on previous court cases. As far as I'm concerned, I was elected to be a servant leader by our people, to represent them, to follow the safety, welfare, and health of the county citizens. And the day, in my opinion, the day any of us put a potential project ahead of our people's best interest in the county, in place of projected gross dollars, not net, maybe I need to find something else to do on Tuesdays. I just wanted to relay that fact that I think we need to look at lots of different things in this area and many places in our county. So thank you for the time spent on this and listening to me. And there was one area we did talk about, though, at last meeting that's not on here. And so I thought I would mention that. And we can discuss it at a later date. I'm not saying we discuss it now. But we had talked about putting in no turbine shall be located closer than the total height of 2 times of the turbine plus 50 feet from an accessory building, property line, or road right-of-way. We had visited about discussing that 2 times. And so that might be one area that we need to look at coming up later on. So I think the 3,000 foot has been pretty well, 6 times have been pretty well talked about. And then just to include the wetlands plan with regard to the areas that floodplains and so forth was involved in, or maybe we put that down in just one specific area that applied to everything. Was that probably what we did, Mark? Yes. Okay, that's fine then.
I think that's been taken care of by agreement of the 3 of us.
Yeah, but I didn't see it on the plan I had here. That was all on the February 9th. So I would just thought I'd cover that. Okay.
One of the other items at play here, I don't know if all the commissioners are aware, maybe staff is aware or not, but there's Senate Bill 279 that's in front of the Kansas Senate right now.
Yes.
And it appears to, by way of statute, override a lot of the things we're talking about here. So I think it might be appropriate to get a staff report sent out as to what the differences are in Senate Bill 279 compared to what we're looking at here. And I assume I'm not familiar when they in session typically. Is it April? Like when we would expect to know whether this bill has life or not?
Middle of April.
I think they start going home in April, but then they come back to finish in May, early
Okay.
May.
So I would be interested in knowing what I breezed through it, and there were all the setbacks were talked about, and they were. I mean, I think they would override this. I think so. Maybe a planning briefing and a legal briefing as to what the potential impacts, and I don't know if we can talk to the Kansas Association of Counties and see what they feel like the likelihood of success on that bill is. Maybe.
I just heard about the bill. I haven't, since I was gone this weekend, I haven't had a chance to look it up. But I know in past, not knowing what the bill says, but in past on these states, on many things, the county has the ability to not lessen, but to increase. And I don't know whether that applies to this or not. So,
Well, that
yeah.
might be part of the legal briefing. I think that would be great to have. Mr. Chairman, I'd motion to table this item until April 13th.
Okay.
Are you suggesting this to be on the agenda on April 13th?
Yeah, I think chair could put that back on there, and I think if we needed to, we could put it on before then too, if there was other agreement. But
Want to put it on for March 30th? And then if we need to table it again, we can. But
well, I think my motion's for April 13th.
I'll second the motion.
okay. I would prefer much to be March 30th on that extra session. So that's my opinion. So any more discussion? Not?
You know, I thought about that a little bit, and this is a difficult process, and I think we might have the mask issue brought up then too, and I think we should probably have them at separate dates if we can.
I mean, this has been a difficult process from the get-go.
Yep.
And I think the sooner we can come to an agreement on this and do our regulations, I personally think that would save a lot of time from staff as well as us. Roll call?
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Regretfully, no. Okay. Now we'll go into department reports.
Those were all just for,
County Administrator.
Okay, for my reports, one in the packet, the department reports, their monthly reports are included. I wasn't gonna go over those, but if there are any questions, well, let me know.
I'm glad we're including those on a monthly basis. I think they're good reports for both us and for the public to know, and it's public information, so it's a good addition to our routine.
Another thing I wanted to mention, this didn't get sent out in the agenda, but this is kind of the year-to-date through February 28th, kind of a high-level overview of where we're at on our funds. And then the next pages are the department expenditures. As you can see, most of the funds, the main funds of Reno County are increased. The ones that are decreased are ones that bring in tax dollars and then they send them out to outside agencies such as tech or mental health, special alcohol and drugs. Same thing, we have programs where that money goes to. But you can see that the general fund is up 21%. Now, part of that is because of timing. We get large amounts of property tax early in the year, and we still have 10 months of expenditures that are more evenly distributed. So that is kind of, it's nice to see, but it won't be like that every month. Let's see. Youth shelter, that one, as you can see, since Shelley was here earlier, the beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year was $675,000. They brought in $220,000 and expended $285,000, so they're down 10% to $610,000.
A lot of this has to do with plus or minuses, has to do with timing and expenditures and revenue, right?
Yes, this just wanted to give you kind of a very high level overview of the funds. The next page, or next two pages, are more of on the expenditure side. Let me enlarge that so you can see. Kind of looks at the general fund, what the 2021 budget is, and commitments, and then year-to-date transactions and remaining budget. There is an asterisk here because on the courthouse general, because as mentioned in previous months, there is some reserve set aside in that department that is meant as a cash balance, not to be spent. Most of the departments are doing well. Can see that information services GIS is at 24% after 2 months. When I looked at the details of that, it's because of software contracts, yearly contracts up front. That's why theirs is a higher amount spent already compared to maybe other departments. So the general fund total, only about 10% spent. And then other departments and funds, Department of Aging, all the departments are doing well. I didn't notice any that looked like they were overspending this time through this time frame. Again, as we start getting into the funds like training or tech and mental health, of course they're going to be higher because when the money comes in, it goes out until they get to their adopted allocation. Any questions on any of these numbers? There's really not a lot to highlight this early in the year that I've noticed, but
Do you think there's a chance we could reduce the mill levy this year?
that'll be a discussion. I think anything's possible with it. I mean, it'll just maybe mean cuts to various departments or raising the expected revenues to closer to what they actually are, which then takes away from your cash balance. So there's danger in it, but if there are areas you want to cut, then that would help. We do expect at this stage for assessed valuation to be up, as I think with residential, commercial, industrial, it is up. The numbers we won't know till later in the year are state assessed values and oil and gas values. If those go down, it could wipe out the increase that we're seeing on the other side, the part that the appraiser has already worked on. So right now we're looking at a small valuation increase, which will help with the mill levy. But if state assessed and oil and gas go down, it'll be a different issue.
I noticed one thing that Representative Wagner sent out was that those taxing entities that are under $100,000 don't have to have notices sent to them. Have you seen that in the new bill?
I believe it was amended and that was removed, I believe.
It was.
I believe that was removed.
I
Yes.
just sent his email.
It was removed, I believe, last week, so. Yes.
He tried.
But I believe that, but one of the changes on the bill, at least what the House has voted on, makes the notification not have to take place till the following year. So it gives us some time to
That
work
was
on
good
it.
for that area.
Yes.
Which was good to have. That's what the clerks had asked.
Yes. Any other questions on the financials? The other things I was going to report, well, just kind of, it's changed a little bit. I was just going to remind you of the 5th Tuesday in March. And so as I have it now, other than maybe important items that come up, we have a fee study for the landfill. That discussion, Megan and SCS will be back to go over the fee schedule, options, and then the mask for COVID. So both of those probably will be long. Well, I know at least the fee study will be a pretty long discussion, so.
Do we have to make a decision on that fee study at the time it's presented? To me, that's a big potential change in the way that we're working out there at solid waste. And to me, I think it ought to be presented, and we ought to have a couple weeks to digest it before we're asked to move towards something.
And that is up to you guys. I think as long as staff gets clear direction of what it is you're leaning toward. I know there was a study session, I believe, in November, and we talked about the fee study, and maybe even last year it was discussed at a meeting. So it's just coming up with enough information of the direction you guys want to go, so that when it is presented for a decision, that we're ready, we have all the documents ready to go. So it was meant for the March 30th, so it is a real discussion to get to that point to where Megan and SCS knows exactly where.
Well, can
the
they
county
send
commission
out
wants
the
to go.
information then ahead of time before that?
Yes.
A week ahead or something like
Yes.
that? I just think that the change in direction that you're potentially asking for, in my opinion, is a significant change from the way that we've funded that in the past. And to not get the public to understand what we might be doing there is not in our best long-term interest.
Yeah, and we'll get the information out to you in advance, and again, on that day, you don't have to make a vote. It's just, we'll just need to know when to bring it back for a vote.
Outside of the cost, which I'm sure, Commissioner Sellers, one of the items you're referring to is the fact that the biggest change would be the CDC, the demolition C&D being charged for. And I think that's between that and the increased cost are the two major items.
Well, isn't one of the items they're asking for is a gate fee?
I don't believe, I can't speak for them, I haven't seen their
I haven't seen
presentation.
the final, but that was
That was
discussed
one of
at
the-
our
that was an
previous
option.
meeting.
I think that's an option. I don't know that that's going to be recommended
Okay,
right
well,
away. There may be a step into that over the years, but I think not immediately.
Okay.
I believe really it is the commercial charging a gate fee for the commercial or C&D more than the residents.
Okay,
But we'll
see
get
what
you,
they present.
yeah, we'll get you information prior to March 30th. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commission reports? Or just Joe, do you have anything at this time? Commissioner?
I just had one quick thought or request maybe for Randy. if it would be possible, given we're doing the 2 to 3 meetings a month now, would it be possible to get a first draft of the agenda, just the agenda, by like Tuesday? And then I think you have a cutoff on Thursday, right?
Wednesday, well, sometimes it goes to Thursday, Wednesday, yes. The county, I could email the full county commission of what I emailed the chair. Here's a draft, any changes, any thoughts. If the chair is okay with that, I can share it with all 3 commissioners.
Well, yeah, I would just occasionally I've kind of been caught Thursday afternoon or Friday and have an idea for an agenda item, and then there's a quick, back and forth that sometimes kind of stops the presses. And if there was I think it would help remind us that it's coming up and kind of know what the chair and you're thinking.
Okay.
If that wouldn't be too much.
No problem. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Commissioner Sellers?
Yeah, I have 3 or 4 quick items. I want to commend the health department and their continuation of the excellent administration of the vaccine that they have available. I continue to hear everybody complimenting the organization of that, and I've heard across the state many complaints about other places not doing a capable job, and I think we've just hit that in a good way, and Carlin staff should be commended for that. I'd also like to commend the medicine shop for being a good citizen and sharing the vaccine that they were given to our educational people last week. That's an important part of getting this thing to move ahead and go towards the future, and the medicine shop was certainly a good citizen in helping us to take care of that group of people. I commend Chief Beer on his work with the fire department. It's obvious that we've got an excellent fire department, and it's an important department. I think the report from Youth Services, it just shows that the county has many, many excellent departments, and I think our citizens sometimes don't realize how well the departments are working on their behalf. Hoping that our communications manager can help get the word out in a better way in the future on what all these departments do for the county as a whole. Then I have one question for the county administrator. What is your plan for looking for a new HR director?
This microphone doesn't work.
Okay.
Isn't working, so I'll stand up here. So for the HR director right now, Helen is the interim HR director. We have it published out on various listservs and on the Reno County website. So we are searching for applications, resumes. Anyone can go to renogov.org to find the posting. Probably take applications, resumes through the end of this month, and then start the interview process with the assessment center process that was used for the health director and the communication specialist, a similar process for the human resources director sometime in April. And hopefully have someone on board within a few weeks of that.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to follow up on that, and I just wanted to echo all of what Commissioner Sellers said, and it's a good reminder, I need to get better at my reports, so I appreciate you highlighting all the great things happening at the county level. But so thank you, and I agree with that completely. The particular item on the HR director, I just want to throw something out there. We haven't talked about it, so I don't expect an answer. But I thought about maybe is there an opportunity to pivot here a little bit and look at an HR director that also could serve in the capacity as an assistant county administrator, and whether that would be something that might be helpful for you.
I think it's an option, and it really depends on the applicants. If the right applicant came in, I could look at that and propose that to the commission. So I don't think that's off the table.
Okay.
It's something I kind of thought of at one time too, with this, because for everyone, obviously, human resources is a very strategic position and very important for an organization. So I think this is a very important hire.
I agree, and just looking at the county org chart, I still think it looks like there's some opportunities to consolidate some of the more administrative departments, but I can see that being a burden on you if there isn't somebody to take some of that load. So I think that could play into the timing. So thanks for considering.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sellers, anything else?
No.
Yes, you brought up very valid points. The importance and the quality of the department heads and the employees we have here. The only thought I had was, and I spoke with our administrator about it this morning, has to do with the temporary burn ban that I think was put into place for a day, but I don't know how long, and so we'll check on that, because I would not want to see a full burn ban just because of the problems we've had last year with regards to getting many pastures and many CRP burned that didn't get burned, but were supposed to, and maybe only have a year this next year to get it done. So further conversation held on that. All right. Now, go to executive session.
Could I address you on that?
Yes, you may.
Okay. It's about 11:40, and we have potentially 3 of these executive sessions, and I don't know whether you all want to get to all of them today, but one of them particularly is a contractual matter that I think probably I'd like to go with number 2, if we could first. The undersheriff is here, and he's involved in that. If we could get that one out of the way and then proceed with the others as time allows. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to request a motion, and if I could recite it, and then somebody agrees, they can so move. I would ask the board for a motion to recess an executive session for a period not to exceed 30 minutes for a discussion of a privileged legal matter with legal counsel concerning the county's firing range lease and a new contract proposal with the city of Hutchinson for the firing range. No binding action is expected following the executive session, following which time the board would return to its regular session and potentially entertain a motion to go into a second executive session, and if not, it would potentially adjourn for the day. So with respect to this first executive session, obviously, since it's with legal counsel, I need to remain. I'd like to ask the county administrator and Under Sheriff Sean McKaylee remain for the executive session.
Okay.
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I won't repeat all of that. So we do executive session for 30 minutes. I've got it here. Discussion, if not, roll call.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes. Okay. Have a couple minutes here and then we'll